Welcome to my channel. This channel is dedicated to horror stories. Enjoy watching. The crisp winter air greeted us as we arrived in our new town, a quaint settlement nestled amidst rolling hills and dense forests. My daughter, Rebecca, peered out of the car window with wide eyes, her excitement palpable despite the lingering unease from leaving our old life behind. "It's so different here, Papa," she remarked, her voice tinged with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "It is, sweetheart," I replied, forcing a smile as I navigated the narrow streets lined with charming cottages and cozy shops. "But it's going to be our fresh start, a chance for us to build something new." Rebecca nodded, but I could sense her uncertainty beneath the facade of excitement. Moving away from everything familiar was hard for both of us, especially after the tumultuous events that had led us here. As we pulled up to our new home, a quaint country house surrounded by towering trees and sprawling fields, I felt a surge of hope mingled with trepidation. Would this place be the sanctuary we so desperately needed, or would it bring new challenges we hadn't anticipated? "We're here," I announced, turning off the engine and stepping out into the chilly afternoon air. Rebecca followed suit, her small hand clutching mine tightly as we surveyed our new surroundings. "It's different," she said again, her gaze sweeping over the quiet landscape. "It is," I agreed, ruffling her hair affectionately. "But different can be good, right? We'll make this place our own. Just you wait and see." Rebecca nodded, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Despite her uncertainty, I could see the glimmer of hope in her eyes, a reflection of my own determination to make our new beginnings a success. Together, we stepped through the front door of our new home, ready to embrace whatever challenges and adventures lay ahead. Little did we know, our arrival marked the beginning of a journey that would test our courage, resilience, and the bonds of family in ways we never imagined possible. The first few days in our new home passed by in a whirlwind of unpacking boxes, exploring the nearby woods, and getting acquainted with our neighbors. Despite the initial excitement, a sense of unease lingered beneath the surface, a subtle awareness of the unfamiliarity of our surroundings. One chilly evening, as the shadows lengthened and the trees swayed in the breeze outside, Dorothy's voice broke through the quiet of the house. "Papa, can I go play in the backyard?" she asked, peering up at me with hopeful eyes. I glanced at the window, where the fading light cast long shadows across the yard, and hesitated. "It's getting late, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep the concern out of my voice. "Maybe tomorrow." Dorothy's shoulders slumped, disappointment evident in her expression. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As the evening wore on, I busied myself with chores around the house, trying to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled over me. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, a nagging sense of foreboding lingered in the back of my mind. Later that night, as I tucked Rebecca into bed and kissed her forehead goodnight, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Her room felt too quiet, too still, as if the very air held its breath in anticipation. I was just about to close the door when Dorothy's voice pierced the silence. "Papa," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "There's something outside my window." My heart skipped a beat as I rushed to her side, my pulse quickening with apprehension. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Rebecca pointed towards the window, her finger trembling. "There's a man," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But he's all twisted around, like he's walking backwards." A chill ran down my spine as I peered out into the darkness, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows outside. But the yard was empty, bathed in moonlight and cast in eerie silence. "It's just your imagination, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "There's no one there." But even as I spoke the words, a sense of unease gnawed at me. Something about Dorothy's fear felt too real, too visceral to be dismissed as mere imagination. And as I tucked her into bed and kissed her forehead goodnight, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that something sinister lurked just beyond the edge of our sight. The days blurred together as we settled into our new home, but the sense of unease lingered like a shadow, growing stronger with each passing moment. Despite my attempts to rationalize Rebecca's encounter as a figment of her imagination, I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked just beyond the edge of our perception. One morning, as I ventured outside to gather firewood for the fireplace, I stumbled upon something that sent a shiver down my spine. In the freshly fallen snow beneath Rebecca's window, I spotted a set of footprints, large, misshapen, and utterly unlike anything I'd ever seen before. "Rebecca, come take a look at this," I called, my voice tinged with concern. Rebecca hurried to my side, her eyes widening with alarm as she took in the strange markings in the snow. "What are those?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not sure," I replied, my brow furrowing with unease. "But they look like footprints, and they lead right up to your window." Dorothy's eyes widened with fear as she realized the implications of what I was saying. "Do you think it's the man I saw last night?" she asked, her voice trembling. I hesitated, unsure of how to answer. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But whatever it is, we need to be careful." As the days passed, more strange occurrences began to unfold. Handprints appeared on the windows, twisted and misshapen, as if left by some monstrous creature. Objects went missing, only to reappear in strange places hours later, and the sense of being watched grew stronger with each passing moment, like a weight pressing down on our shoulders. "It's like we're being haunted," Dorothy whispered one night, her voice tinged with fear. "I know, sweetheart," I replied, wrapping my arms around her in a futile attempt to provide comfort. "But we'll get through this. We just need to stick together." But even as I spoke the words, a sinking feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. Whatever was happening in our new home, it was far from over. And as the days turned into weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being drawn deeper and deeper into a nightmare from which there might be no escape. The morning sun cast a warm glow over our new home as I stepped outside to retrieve the morning paper. The fresh scent of pine hung in the air, and a sense of tranquility settled over the quiet neighborhood. As I made my way back inside, newspaper in hand, I noticed a figure approaching from down the street. It was David, one of our neighbors, a friendly-faced man with a warm smile and a twinkle in his eye. "Morning, David," I called out, waving as he drew near. "Morning, neighbor," David replied, returning the wave. "How's the new place treating you?" I shrugged, offering him a rueful smile. "It's been eventful, to say the least." David's eyebrows rose in curiosity. "Oh, anything I should know about?" I hesitated, unsure of how much to share, but something in David's gaze urged me to speak, to unburden myself of the unease that had been weighing on me since our arrival. "Well, it's just," I began, trailing off as I glanced back at the house, a sense of foreboding creeping over me. "Something doesn't feel right," I confessed, turning back to David. "My daughter Rebecca, she's been seeing things, strange things, outside her window at night." David's expression grew somber, his brow furrowing with concern. "I see," he said, his voice grave. "You might want to be careful, friend. This town has its secrets, and not all of them are pleasant." I frowned, my unease deepening at his words. "What do you mean?" David hesitated, as if debating whether to speak further. But then, with a heavy sigh, he seemed to come to a decision. "There have been stories," he said, his voice low, "stories about things that lurk in the shadows, things that shouldn't be seen. People call them the backwoods men. I felt a chill run down my spine at the mention of those words, the same words Rebecca had used to describe the figure she'd seen outside her window. The backwoods men, I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. David nodded, his expression grave. They're not natural, if you catch my drift, and they're not to be trifled with. Best to keep your doors locked at night and your curtains drawn tight. I nodded, my heart heavy with dread. Thanks for the warning, David. I'll keep that in mind. As David turned to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over me. The stories he'd shared painted a chilling picture of our new town, one filled with secrets and shadows that seemed to lurk just beyond the edge of sight. And as I watched him disappear down the street, I couldn't help but wonder what other horrors lay hidden beneath the surface of our seemingly idyllic new home. The eerie stillness of the night hung heavy around our home as I sat in the dim glow of the living room, my senses on high alert. Dorothy was fast asleep in her room, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at me, a sense that something sinister lurked just beyond the edge of our sight. Suddenly, a faint scratching sound echoed from outside, causing my heart to skip a beat. I tensed, straining to listen, my breath catching in my throat as the noise grew louder, more insistent. With a sense of dread knotting in my stomach, I rose from the armchair and crept towards the window, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet beneath my feet. As I peered out into the darkness, my eyes widened in horror at the sight that greeted me. There, standing just beyond the pool of light cast by the porch lamp, was the figure of a man. But it was no ordinary man. His limbs were twisted and contorted, his movements jerky and unnatural as he lurked in the shadows. A cold shiver ran down my spine as I realized what I was seeing. One of the dreaded backwoods men that David had warned me about. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to remain calm, to think rationally in the face of this otherworldly threat. Rebecca, I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. Dorothy, wake up. We need to go. But there was no response from her room, no sound of movement from within. Dread clutched at my heart as I realized she was still fast asleep, unaware of the danger lurking just outside her window. With a sense of urgency coursing through me, I hurried towards her room, my footsteps echoing loudly in the silent house. But as I reached for the door handle, a voice stopped me in my tracks. You shouldn't have come here. A chilling whisper echoed from the darkness behind me, sending a shiver down my spine. I whirled around to face the source of the voice, my heart pounding in my chest. There, standing in the doorway, was the twisted figure of the backwoods man, his eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. Stay away from my daughter, I growled, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and fury. But the creature only chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. She's not yours to protect, it hissed, its voice dripping with malice. She belongs to us now. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged towards the creature, my fists clenched in determination. But as I drew closer, it vanished into thin air, leaving nothing but a cold chill in its wake. Breathless and trembling, I collapsed to the ground, my mind reeling with the realization of the horrors that lurked in the shadows of our new home. And as I gathered Rebecca into my arms and fled into the night, I knew that our battle against the darkness was far from over. The events of the previous night haunted me as I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of cold coffee and trying to make sense of the horrors we'd encountered. Rebecca was still asleep upstairs, blissfully unaware of the danger that lurked just beyond the safety of our walls. But I couldn't afford to dwell on the past, not when our lives were at stake. With a sense of urgency gnawing at my insides, I knew I had to take action, to do whatever it took to protect my daughter from the sinister forces that threatened to consume us. I glanced at the clock on the wall, its hands ticking away the seconds with ominous finality. It was almost dawn, the time when the creatures of the night would retreat to the shadows and lick their wounds until darkness fell once more. With a sense of determination coursing through me, I rose from the table and set about fortifying our home, barricading doors and windows with whatever makeshift weapons I could find. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside sent a shiver down my spine, a reminder of the perilous situation we found ourselves in. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence, causing me to startle in surprise. It was Rebecca, her footsteps echoing down the staircase as she descended into the kitchen, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. "Papa, what's going on?" she asked, her voice tinged with confusion. I forced a reassuring smile, though my heart was heavy with the weight of the truth I knew I had to share. "We're going to play a little game, sweetheart," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "A game of hide and seek. But this time, we're going to play it a little differently." Rebecca's brow furrowed in confusion, but she nodded, trusting me to keep her safe. "Okay, Papa," she said, her voice small but determined. With a heavy heart, I led her to the nearest closet, motioning for her to hide inside. The night had fallen with an oppressive weight, enveloping our home in a blanket of darkness that seemed to smother the very air we breathed. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind outside sent a shiver down my spine, a reminder of the unseen dangers that lurked just beyond the edge of our vision. Dorothy and I huddled together in the living room, our eyes fixed on the flickering flames of the fireplace, as if seeking solace in their warm embrace. But despite the illusion of safety they provided, we both knew that we were teetering on the edge of the abyss, facing an unknown terror that threatened to consume us whole. "Papa," Dorothy whispered, her voice trembling with fear. "What are we going to do?" I turned to face her, forcing a reassuring smile, despite the fear that gnawed at my insides. "We're going to stay calm, sweetheart," I replied, my voice steady but filled with an underlying tension. "We're going to stay together, and we're going to get through this. I promise." Dorothy nodded, her eyes wide with fear but filled with a determination that mirrored my own. "Okay, Papa," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. With a sense of resolve coursing through me, I rose from the couch and made my way to the nearest window, peering out into the darkness beyond. The night was eerily silent, the only sound the faint rustle of leaves in the wind and the distant howl of a lone wolf. But as I scanned the shadows for any sign of movement, a sense of unease settled over me. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in my bones, a primal instinct warning me of the imminent danger that lurked just beyond our walls. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from outside, sending a chill down my spine. I whirled around to face Dorothy, my heart pounding in my chest. "Stay here," I whispered, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll be right back." With a sense of dread gnawing at my insides, I crept towards the front door, my senses on high alert as I prepared to face the unknown terror that lurked just beyond. Whatever horrors awaited us, I knew that I would do whatever it took to protect Rebecca, even if it meant facing the darkest depths of the night alone. And as I flung open the door and stepped out into the darkness, I braced myself for the battle that lay ahead, steeling my resolve to emerge victorious against the unknown forces that threatened to consume us. The dawn broke with a timid light, casting long shadows across the quiet town as I ventured into the woods, determined to uncover the truth behind the horrors that had plagued us. The trees loomed overhead, their branches twisting and reaching towards the sky like gnarled fingers, and the air was thick with an otherworldly stillness that sent a shiver down my spine. Dorothy stayed behind, safe within the confines of our home, while I braved the unknown in search of answers. Every step I took felt like a journey into the heart of darkness, a descent into the depths of a nightmare from which there was no waking. As I trudged deeper into the woods, my senses heightened with anticipation, a faint rustling in the underbrush catching my attention. With bated breath, I pressed forward, my heart pounding in my chest as I prepared to face whatever lay ahead. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, its form twisted and contorted in a grotesque parody of humanity. It was one of the dreaded backwards men, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent as it loomed before me, blocking my path. With a surge of adrenaline, I drew back, my mind racing as I searched for a way to defend myself against the monstrous creature that stood before me. "What do you want from us?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and fury. The creature chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "We want what is ours," it hissed, its voice dripping with malice. "We want the girl." My blood ran cold at its words, the gravity of the situation sinking in as I realized the true extent of the danger that lurked just beyond our doorstep. But before I could respond, a voice echoed from behind me, sending a wave of relief flooding through my veins. It was David, our neighbor, his presence a beacon of hope in the darkness that surrounded us. "You leave him alone," David growled, his voice laced with defiance as he stepped forward to stand by my side. "You've caused enough pain already." The creature snarled, its eyes narrowing with rage as it faced our unexpected opposition. "You cannot stop us," it spat, its voice filled with venom. "We will have what is ours." But David stood his ground, his resolve unwavering as he faced down the creature that threatened to consume us whole. With a sense of determination coursing through me, I joined him, standing tall in the face of the unknown as we prepared to confront the horrors that lay ahead. Whatever dangers awaited us, I knew that together we would face them head on, united in our determination to protect those we held dear from the darkness that threatened to engulf us all. The final chapter of our harrowing ordeal unfolded with a sense of urgency that hung heavy in the air, as if the very fabric of reality strained against the forces that sought to tear us apart. With the dawn breaking over the horizon, casting a timid light across the town, we stood on the precipice of salvation or damnation, our fates hanging in the balance. As the first light of dawn filtered through the trees, illuminating the tangled undergrowth of the forest, I felt a surge of determination coursing through me. We had come too far to turn back now, too close to victory to let it slip through our fingers. With David by my side, we ventured deeper into the woods, our footsteps echoing in the stillness of the morning as we followed the trail that would lead us to the heart of the darkness that threatened to consume us. As we pushed forward, the air grew thick with tension, a palpable sense of dread weighing on our shoulders like a suffocating cloak. But despite the fear that gnawed at our insides, we pressed on, driven by a shared resolve to confront the horrors that lurked just beyond our sight. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, its form twisted and contorted in a grotesque parody of humanity. It was one of the dreaded backwards men, its eyes gleaming with malevolent intent as it loomed before us, blocking our path. With a surge of adrenaline, I drew back, my mind racing as I searched for a way to defend ourselves against the monstrous creature that stood before us. "What do you want from us?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and fury. The creature chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "We want what is ours," it hissed, its voice dripping with malice. "We want the girl." But before I could respond, David stepped forward, his gaze steady and unwavering as he faced down the creature that threatened to consume us whole. "You will not have her," he growled, his voice laced with defiance. "She is not yours to claim." The creature snarled, its eyes narrowing with rage as it faced our unexpected opposition. "You cannot stop us," it spat, its voice filled with venom. "We will have what is ours." But David stood his ground, his resolve unwavering as he faced down the darkness that sought to consume us. With a sense of determination coursing through me, I joined him, standing tall in the face of the unknown as we prepared to confront the horrors that lay ahead. Whatever dangers awaited us, I knew that together we would face them head-on, united in our determination to protect those we held dear from the darkness that threatened to engulf us all.